This is Joy News Prime here on Joy News on Multi TV. In this edition, government revises downwards economic growth targets for 2015 from 3.9% to 3.5% as Finance Minister presents supplementary budget and review of its performance so far. Now, though the Finance Minister says there are signs policies to stabilize the economy are yielding results, the minority says it is early days yet. Food and Drugs Authority recalls yet another aphrodisiac as it clamps down on some adulterated products on the market it says could cause the death of patrons. Police administration insists its eviction notice to officers occupying Militia House in Tema is non-negotiable. And former Ekiti State Governor addresses third at a Mills lecture urging intellectuals to come off the fence and engage more in the political space. We have more on the Finance Minister's presentation on the economy to Parliament in business. And then George Addo Jr. will be here with sports. Do stay tuned. My name is Israeli, and this bulletin is available across Europe on ABN Television based in the UK. Our very first story. Intellectuals in Ghana are being urged to offer their services to the public and engage more in the political space as the society becomes more enlightened. Former Ekiti State Governor in Nigeria, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, who said this, observed the increasing demands of globalization requires enlightened, thoughtful people who would add value to the society, such as the late Professor Evan Mills. Speaking at an event in Accra to mark the third annual memorial lectures to honor the late president, Dr. Fayemi said the often held perception that by many intellectuals, that politics is a dirty game and as such are reluctant to join the political fray should be discarded. Dr. Fayemi observed that the struggle for Africa's liberalization was waged by intellectuals such as Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and Dr. K.A. Buzia, among others, and charged Ghanaian intellectuals to be bold and take up appointments to enrich the country's governance system.
The challenge is therefore one of communication. The purpose of public intellect is to translate rarefied ideas into the vernacular and non-verbal communication of the masses, to bring these ideas into the mainstream without being condescending. As political actors, intellectuals must take ideological arguments and translate them into tangible policy options that demonstrably have an impact on the lives of ordinary people. And as I say, every so often, walk with the people and not for the people. Intellectuals are sometimes derided for being idealistic, and contemporary public discourse entertains the dichotomy between the ideal and the practical, with intellectuals frequently lampooned for being unrealistic dreamers. I still believe that this dichotomy is false, where conventional wisdom insists that the ideal and the practical are at odds. Kwame Nkrumah urged us to think as men of action and act as men of thought, thereby postulating the complementarity of ideal and practice.
So what do Ghanaian politicians make of the generally held perception that the intellectuals are reluctant to join the political fray because of the widely held view that politicians are opportunistic and self-serving? We sought the views of former Finance Minister under the Kufuor administration, Yao Safo and NDC General Secretary Johnson Esiedun Ketia.
It is not true. Indeed, from the speaker, a lot of our leaders have been intellectuals, starting from Kwame Nkrumah. They are very brilliant and they have their own passion, either the socialist line or the capitalist line. I believe that people you need intellectuals in politics because they tend to bring principles into the game. And at the end of the day, we can only sustain our democracy if we are principled.
It's the case that politicians don't have any option because the level of enlightenment that we are in society now, you cannot take actions that you have not thought through, and you cannot be sitting there thinking without taking action. So this is the era of thoughtful action, and the lecturer was apt in that.
The lecture theme, The Role of Intellectuals in African Politics and Governance, formed part of activities to mark the 3rd anniversary of the passing of the late Professor Evans Atta Mills. A wreath-laying ceremony is scheduled to be held on Friday at the Sumje Park, which will be later opened to the public. In other news, the Food and Drugs Authority has announced the recall of yet another aphrodisiac on the market it says has been adulterated. It follows the recall of 6 others after they were found to contain controlled substances. Head of Drug Enforcement Thomas Majuro says the FDA has received intelligence there's a proliferation of similar adulterated aphrodisiacs on the market, which the authority is seeking to clear.
Products blacklisted by the Food and Drugs Authority are Rockman capsules, Angel Natural capsules, Tinated Before, Adom Gentleman Power capsules, Lord P capsules, and Mars for Men. The latest to be put on that blacklist is Recharger, a Chinese product. According to the FDA, the products are so toxic they could result in heart attacks and bleeding in the brain, which could lead to stroke and even death.
Vardenafil is actually a group, they belong to a group of compounds that are used for treatment of sexual dysfunction. We call them the phosphodiesterase inhibitors. We have vardenafil, we have tadalafil, which is the commonest compound is Cialis. And then we have sildenafil, which we call Viagra, the compound, the active ingredient in Viagra. So they belong to that one family, you see. So this vardenafil, all of them too, they have that effect. They can cause hemorrhage, bleeding in the brain. They can cause, they can impede, that is, impair oxygen supply to the heart and leading to heart attack. They can also cause blurred vision, affect your sight, can affect your kidney function. And also, when some people who are on certain medication like glycerin, which is used for ischemic attack, if you are on such medications, some medications, so you are not supposed to use that drug because it can lead to fatalities or complications.
Thomas Amejo revealed to Joy News, intelligence from food and drug authorities in other countries have proved very helpful in the ongoing clampdown.
This issue of adulteration, contamination, counterfeiting is a global phenomenon. It's not limited to us. It's all over the world. And so we've been exchanging best practices. It's because of this that US FDA even has to give us information. When we find something, we also find something, we tell them this is what we found. WHO also has a rapid alert system, some kind of database, so they send information across to all members. Say, we found this in Central Africa. It is possible it might be filtering through the West African region also, so look out for it. Then we also, so all these things are trigger points that help us in our surveillance.
Interestingly, all the blacklisted products have obtained FDA certification. But Mr. Amejo explained the samples they tested did not contain the hazardous substances found in the adulterated products currently on the market.
Before we say this product has been approved, then we have done due diligence, and then also subsequently we do the market surveillance to ensure that the people continue to abide by the terms and conditions regarding the marketing authorization that was given to them, so that they will not unduly endanger people, the public. So we do all that we can.
The recalled products, according to the FDA, will be destroyed on Friday.
The National Malaria Control Program has allayed fears that chemo prevention exercise is a decoy for an Ebola vaccine trial. The exercise will see children between the ages of 3 and 59 months receive the malaria prevention drug. Parents have, however, become suspicious. Officials are coming up with a clever way to reintroduce the Ebola vaccine trial, which was recently suspended. The national coordinator of the program, Dr. James Frimpong, assured the exercise will help save the lives of about 150 children who are mostly afflicted by seasonal malaria. He told the Pulse extensive education is ongoing to address the fear.
Well, you know, these medicines that are being used for SMC are medicines that have been used in Kenya for well over 5 decades. And so these are not new products being experimented on anybody. And obviously, in public health intervention, you don't expect every person you target to accept or use the intervention.
But Mr. Frimpong, Dr. Frimpong, I think my question is, how are you convincing the mother in the Upper West region that, look, this is not an Ebola vaccine trial? If you think it is, you feel free to give the medicine to your child.
Exactly that. So we, every district has put together a social mobilization team and education and communication activities are going on in all communities. The regional health director is deeply involved. There's been sensitization of the key stakeholders at the regional level, at the state level, and so education is going alongside the actual administration of the medicine.
The Ghana Cocoa Board has vowed to hand down smugglers of fertilizers meant for cocoa farmers. It follows the arrest of 2 police officers who provided cover for smugglers who attempted to sneak out of the country about 390 bags of fertilizer. The bags of fertilizer valued at 50,000 Ghana cedis were meant for cocoa farmers at Sankore in the Sunafo South District of the Branhafu region. The culprits have since been put before court. Precious Semovo is our correspondent and has the rest of the story.
This number of bags were meant for farmers, 390 bags of fertilizers meant for farmers at Sankore in the Sunafo South District of the Branhafu region. Now, actually, what is happening is that the fertilizers meant for the farmers, the farmers, some of them do, sell this product to some agrochemical sellers outside, the district, and some also sell to other middlemen, and then they will then convey them, send it to their stores, and then go and sell them. But an intelligence officer of the Cocoa Board, who I will not disclose his identity, said they had hints of that, and then they informed or alerted the police to intercept them at Chirensua, which they did on Sunday, late in the night at 10 p.m., where they arrested the vehicle loaded with the fertilizers, and to the surprise of all, 2 policemen were escorting them. And the policemen, you have Achei Amwa, and then Osei Tutu, 27 years, and then 31 years, respectively. So they are going to face the laws of the land. That is according to the regional commander, DSOP Maxwell Asangani.
Now, at Cocoa Board, what reactions did you get from there?
Well, they've been saying that it's unfortunate that this sort of activities is happening, as much as government is trying to support farmers with free fertilizers so that they can increase their yield. Some of them intend to sell them, and one Mr. Thomas Chineboakodia, he happens to be the regional manager, Cocoa Health, and then Extension Division of a Cocoa Board here in Sunyani, said, talking to some of the farmers, some of them say that if they are hungry, what do we expect them to do?
You're watching Joy News Prime here on Joy News on Multis TV. Still to come in the bulletin, government revises downwards economic growth target for 2015 from 3.9% to 3.5%. As Finance Minister presents supplementary budget and review of its government's performance so far. We're taking a break. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Now, World Health Organization scientist Professor Alex Dodo has been invited to appear before Parliament on Thursday, July 23. The letter signed by the Principal Assistant Clerk, Ebenezer Ahuma Jitro, said the invitation is in connection with the alleged contemptuous statement he made on the phase 1 of the Ebola vaccine trial. Aisha Ibrahim will be joining me in a bit to give further explanations about what this actually means. Right, so good evening to you, Aisha, and so you're aware of this invitation, extended to Professor Alex Dodo, and the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, he's been invited, or he's been summoned, before the whole Chamber of Parliament. Again, what is likely to happen? Is it that they're going to essentially pronounce his punishment or sanction?
Today, if you look at today's order paper in Parliament, you realize that the House was supposed to present a draft report to the whole House, because the Privileges Committee, of course, has some members of Parliament and not all of them. So they'll present a draft report to the House to be debated upon, and then they will present their recommendations to the House. Then the House will debate and then decide that, okay, this is a good recommendation, so we are approving it, we accept it. Or they may say that no, there are some lapses with these recommendations, so go back and do ABC and then bring it back before we approve of it. So basically that's what it's about. But his invitation, I mean, it's normal that if they're going to present such a report to Parliament, they invite him to be present. My knowledge of this, what I know about it is that they'll present this with Black Raster's report as well. They're going to do both together. In fact, today the committee met to finalize the report. So probably tomorrow or Thursday, they will be presenting the report to the House. So
this letter that we have cited, extended to Professor Alex Dodo, you believe that another copy or a similar letter would have been written to or sent to Black Rasta for him to also appear? Now let me just go over what exactly we have in here. It says invitation to attend upon Parliament on Thursday, July 23. It says you're kindly invited to attend upon Parliament on Thursday, 23rd July 2015 at noon in connection with alleged contemptuous remarks you made against the Member of Parliament on their comments on the suspended phase 1 Ebola vaccine trial in the country. Again, you are kindly reminded of your right to be represented by a council of your choice on the set date and time. Why is it necessary that a council of his choice, you know, accompanies him on this expedition?
Well, I think that he's reminded of his rights to be represented by his council could also mean that if he cannot make it, he has the right to choose his council to represent him, but he definitely must be there or he must be represented.
Now, we've heard other members of Parliament indicate that if you are brought before Parliament in this manner, or under such circumstances, there could be an opportunity for you to be humiliated by the members of the House. Is that what they're trying to do? As in, they'll put you out and say, you know, some pretty nasty things to you and just humiliate you and ask you to go.
While the debate is going on, certainly the Prof or Black Rasta cannot be in the chamber. He will be seated at the public gallery observing what's happening. So if members of Parliament want to take their turn to also lambast him the way he did on radio, well, at that time,
they're free to do so.
And I mean, that's their territory, so they can operate how they want, because they cannot just go and meet Professor outside and just insult him. So in the chamber, they may decide to do something.
MPs are really powerful. I think when I grow up, I want to be a member of Parliament. Thank you very much, Aisha Ibrahim. And Aisha Ibrahim is a parliamentary correspondent here at Multimedia. Now, we're staying in Parliament, where government has revised downwards a growth forecast for the country for 2015. From a projected growth rate of 3.9%, the economy is now expected to grow by 3.5%. The Minister of Finance, Tekpe, also told Parliament in his presentation of the supplementary budget and the 2015 budget review, government also projects overspending more than it had initially planned for 2015, and that this should result in an overall budget deficit of 9.7 billion Ghana cedis.
According to the minister, the request is to help the continuation of the transformation agenda in order to maintain the recent gains in economic growth and macro stability.
We are presenting this mid-year review and the supplementary estimates which I just tabled to continue pursuing our transformation agenda, maintain the recent gains in our growth and macroeconomic stability agenda, and entrench our lower middle income country status. The short-term and more structural elements are designed to manage issues such as high foreign finance capital expenditure due to exchange rates, rising inflation, and volatilities in the markets.
Despite the gains pointed out by the finance minister, inflation remained high, with interest rates also shooting up by 5%.
As noted, the Ghana Statistical Service revised the GDP methodology, and this has marginally affected the nominal and real GDP figures for 2007 to 2014. Consequently, provisional growth of GDP in 2014 was 4%. We'll be providing information on this, and the screen shows the information from 2007, old and new GDP figures. On interest rates, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana raised the monetary policy rate by a cumulative 5 percentage points from 16% in 2013 to 21% in 2014. This was broadly in line with the tight monetary policy of the bank during the year to deal with the high inflation expectations and depreciation of the currency.
Public debt, Mr. Tekpa said, has risen to 79.6 billion Ghana cedis from the 53.1 billion Ghana cedis.
Debt stock, which stood at 53.1 billion or 24.5 billion US dollars as at end December 2013, increased to 79.6 billion Ghana cedis or 24.8 billion Ghana cedis as at the end of 2014. Mr. Speaker, the depreciation effect is obvious as the foreign currency component rose by less than $1 billion US dollars.
Emmanuel Lante, Parliament House, Accra.
Well, the minority in Parliament says it is too early for government to seek to claim a stabilization of the economy as portrayed by the Finance Minister in his presentation to Parliament on Tuesday. At a news conference shortly after the Finance Minister had laid the supplementary budget and 2015 budget review, it said the increase in public debt points to an imminent meltdown of the economy.
Speaking to the media after the supplementary budget and the 2015 budget review, the minority spokesperson on finance said Ghana is heading towards doom at the rate the country's debt is ballooning.
We went there in 2001 and got out in 2004. We can't go there again. We just will be broke. Nobody will help us. So let's not anybody feel that we are highly indebted. In fact, now the IMF uses the language high-risk, distressed country. That 70% threshold is not a law, but you feel it when you are there. If you borrow more, there are consequences. It's as simple as that. And so if the city appears to be doing well, but most people should be careful when they say, because the city is doing well, we are doing okay. It's a double-edged sword. Rapid appreciation could also lead to a decline in the exports of some commodities. So some manufacturers could be suffering because your price is relatively higher. How it affects us, we will determine. The fiscal deficit has not improved. In fact, if you listen carefully, we are now going from 6.5% to 7.3%. It means it is getting worse.
A member of the minority finance team, Kweku Kwating, accused the finance minister of throwing dust into the eyes of Ghanaians.
The minister says along the year, government intends to reduce the amount we set aside for stabilization fund. After telling us that we are doing well, that was the first piece of bad news. Budget deficit. In ordinary man's language, it is spending on credit. After telling us that we are doing well, the minister says, we thought we were going to spend about 6.5% of GDP. We'll be spending that on credit, but given the way things are going, we think it will be worse. Total expenditure, the amount of money government spends on us. Government said at the beginning of the year, I'll be spending something in the neighborhood of 39 billion Ghana cedis. Today, the minister came and said, no, I can't spend that much on you people. I can only spend 37.9 billion. That is to say 1.2 billion cedis. Government says it's not going to spend that amount on us any longer. After telling us that I won't do this for you, I won't do this, I won't do that, now government says, but I need more money. And then the summary of all that, as a nation, we are on course. I leave the judgment to you.
According to the minority, it will soon come up with a true review of the 2015 budget.
And we'll bring you more on the Finance Minister's presentation to Parliament today. But right now, the police administration says the eviction notice to officers occupying one of its structures in Tema is not negotiable, insisting the occupants will have to move out immediately. The service says the structure known as Militia House is in such a charitable shape it could collapse at any time. But the over 500 police personnel occupying the building say their employer has failed to make reasonable alternative arrangements for them. Matilda Omega visited Militia House and our reports.
The two-story building referred to as Militia House is located in Community 2, Thema. The over 500 personnel have been living here for more than 6 years. Portions of the building built in the 70s have developed deep cracks with the roofs in tatters. Electrical cables could be seen loosely hanging on the walls. The situation becomes miserable whenever it rains. Aside the danger this building poses to occupants, there are no toilets or bathrooms. The occupants therefore rely on this makeshift structure as their bathroom, while relying on public toilets as their place of convenience. Some of the officers who would rather not have their faces shown for fear of victimization say, though they agree the structure is unsafe, they have to manage to live in there for years.
When we were coming here, they told us that here's a temporary. Okay. So by all means, we will move here, but they haven't made any provision for us.
Okay. So now that they're asking you to leave, have they given you money? Are you ready to move out now?
Madam, I don't have money to go and rent because you know the condition of Tema. Yeah, I can't use 6,000, 7,000, go and rent a room for just 2 years. If they can get us a new place that we can all go and stay there or live there, I think that one will be better for us.
So what we are requiring from them is just to grant us some money from the welfare coffers. At least if they can even give us half of it, we can push it up and then rent our own accommodation. I think that one will help.
Okay, Solo, we are done, eh? But the Tema Regional Police Command says the directive is in the interest of the personnel and that the officers need to move.
We have not police on our records. We have not officially allocated Militia House for any police personnel to stay there. And so how they got there, we don't know. But then when we got to know that they are living there, we have asked not just once, not twice, several times from one commander to the other that they move from the place. So even this very recent signal that we have sent out for personnel leaving there to vacate their place. But then the most important thing is that that Militia House is just not right. It's not habitable for police personnel or even any other person to live there.
She adds that though the police administration has no relocation plan for the families, the administration will refund monies used in renting new apartments.
As it is now, it doesn't look like there's any accommodation anywhere where we can put these personnel living in the Militia House to go and put up with in the interim. That is why we have said that go look for a place yourself. Inform administration you have found a place, and administration is very ready to pay for you.
Many of them are willing to move out, but the issue is the money in bulk to pay for their rent.
There's a procedure that we work at. Ordinarily, you're supposed to be given the police barracks to stay, but if you don't find yourself in a thing like that, we have always advised or suggested, which is a procedure, that you get a place, pay the upfront, and then we remit to you later in salaries. That's like 20% of a basic salary, depending on your rank.
ASP Juliana Obeng is however unable to say if occupants will be forcefully evicted from the building. ASP Juliana Obeng.
With up next, we're bringing you business with Eton Amse, and she has a bit more on what the finance minister has had to say on the supplementary budget and budget review. Please do stay tuned.
Time now for business. My name is Eton Amse. Gas supply to improve significantly in second half of 2016 as government announces 10 projects, 57% complete. At a mid-year budget review in Parliament today, Finance Minister said TECPE announced that 10 projects among several other projects in the oil and gas sector will significantly help transform the economy.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to inform you that the Chinibwa Enyira in Tommy Fields development is 57% complete. The project is on course to meet the deadline in gas supply and is expected to bring on stream additional gas and crude oil supplies during the second half of 2016. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, it is necessary to inform the House and to note that the FPSO, Professor J.E.A. Mills, is expected to set sail to our shores around about December 2015. Work on the Western Corridor gas infrastructure project is completed. However, some ancillary works are still ongoing. This will improve power output and the prospects for power exports. Currently, the Chuabo gas processing plant is delivering 80 million scf of gas per day for thermal plants at Abuazi, as well as 400 metric tons of LPG a day to the domestic markets.
Meanwhile, government has revised total petroleum receipts for 2015 downwards from 4.2 billion cedis to 1.8 billion cedis. The difference is 58% lower than the 2015 budget target and should see a drop in revenue collection for the year. Minister of Energy and Petroleum Emmanuel Amakofibua, however, tells Joy Business there is still hope of a rebound following the completion of most oil and gas projects.
We import more, quite frankly, than we even export in terms of the finished products that we use at the pump bed. And so we have to see both ways, as I have said. And every time that has happened, we've seen the impact in reduced prices at the pump. Yes, I think that. So there's a point in what the minister said. But we see increased production. He also talked about 10 projects coming up and the possibility of increasing oil production and increasing gas production in the coming year. So I think it's, on the whole, it's a good news. And the reason you see these approvals is because people are seeing real results in the very difficult decisions we are making, whether it's deregulation, the downstream sector, whether it is basically making sure that we address the long-term reforms of our distribution sector, whether it is really taking steps to make sure we address the critical challenge in the upstream, which is making sure we have a cheaper fuel source in terms of gas. Those are very important, and I think the response you are getting from this institution is that Ghana is really taking bold steps that will yield real results for our country in the long term.
An economist, Dr. Chinibwa Sensu, is asking government to come out with policies that will support the manufacturing industry. He believes those in the sector have not received enough support to produce more for exports. Dr. Chinibwa Sensu tells Joy Business promoting exports is a sure way of beating down prices of goods and services.
If you don't have an enabling environment and the local producer produce, and the output of its product is that too much expensive as compared of somebody importing, then automatically you have already created a policy environment of people believing in importing product, because we live in a type of a continent where pricing is very sensitive to us. So people look at more of the price than more of the benefit they look at it. So that means your structure by now studying that is really the challenge in your economic system. You're supposed to be working your policy in a way that prices for the producers at the domestic level could be well controlled, more comparative to the external importing. Therefore, you realize that those that are to go and buy as distributors, or more like your buyers, will then be able to resort. Because if I'm to get the same quality of product at the domestic level and at a lower price, why do I waste my effort of importing? So whereby we have a system, government trying to bring a strategy of increasing the importing cost, thinking it's a policy that can deny importers to stop importing, it's a wrong formula. What it does is that rather is increasing the coffers of funds by putting high bill. Those people bring that goods in and trickle it into the system for the system to buy, because already you don't have your production system which are now surviving. Because
the Ghana Chamber of Mines has debunked notions mining companies take undue advantage of communities they operate in and cover up with health projects. Chief Executive of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, Suleiman Koni, says the mining communities have a basic role to protect the community first, while they operate in order to ensure safety in where they operate.
Education generally takes a chunk of, the corporate social responsibility of mining companies, because for us, education is a game changer, as I have said. Educating people, because if you educate people, they can take better care of themselves as far as health is concerned. So education is critical. Not to discount the importance of health. Health is also important, but for us, education is important. And don't prejudge why companies actually go into supporting health, because you know that this is a developing country and government is not able to extend health facilities to every corner of this country. Mining takes place in very deprived communities sometimes, and therefore as part of the corporate social responsibility program of the company, they look at what the requirements of these companies are. If it so happens that they need health facilities, why not the companies will provide that? It is not because the mining companies' operations have dire consequences and dire impacts on the health of the community. That is far from it.
On that note, we wrap up with business. My name is Eton Amsi. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com.
Right, time to do some sports now. The Ghana Football Association has expressed delight at the competitiveness of the ongoing First Capital Plus Premier League. Now, Giants Asante Kotoko and Hearts of Oak have been inconsistent with performances that has left them flirting with relegation with 8 games to the season's close. Newly promoted teams, including Inter Allies and Wafa, are firmly rooted in the top 4, which hitherto wasn't the situation. Sunny Dye, spokesperson of the Ghana FA, and tells Joy Sports his outfit is impressed with the new trend.
The league is interesting, isn't it? That the duopoly of Hearts of Oak and Kumasi Asante Kotoko has been thoroughly broken this season. As we speak now, Hearts and Kotoko are battling to stay in the top flight. Now that tells you one thing, that the other younger teams are now stepping up to the plate and doing maybe something differently that Hearts and Kotoko are not doing. Previously, we had leagues, competitions that was dominated by only 2 teams, and that tells one thing. That tells you the fact that these were the 2 teams that were only doing well in the country. But this season's league is showing that other teams are also capable of doing well, and it shows that the strength is now spreading wider than it used to.
Right, let's stay with the Premier League, and top scorer Nathaniel Asamoah has exclusively told Joy Sports he would not be disappointed if he fails to clinch the goalkeeping title. The Militia SC striker has scored 13 goals, with his closest contender Kofi Owusu of Brecum Chelsea having 11 goals. Asamoah's performance in the second round has not been impressive after netting twice, and he's seeking a revival in the season's remainder.
No, I wouldn't be disappointed because it happened in the beginning of our game, because I think first 4 games it wasn't so well for me. I didn't score any goal, but as time went on I was improving game after game. So I think it is repeating itself again. It's up to me to rise to the occasion. With the goal king, I'm taking game after game. The most important thing for a player is to improve upon game after game, and also when you fall, how quick you can rise again. I think this second round has not been so smoothly for me so far, but I think I'll motivate myself, and I think at the end of the league season something good can come out of it by winning the goal king or something else.
Well, more on football, we talk about some women football. Then Black Queens management has praised the team's show of character in the first leg of the penultimate round of qualifiers in Yaoundé over the weekend. The Queens edged closer to the 2016 Olympics after drawing 1-1 with impressive Cameroon despite playing away. The Queens need to produce more of the same to make their debut at the Olympics next year. And Queens Management Committee Chairperson Linia Adi is urging them on.
I believe it was determination that made us get the draw. The girls were so eager to break the chains that have surrounded Ghana and Cameroon. And so the match went on, but they piled most of the pressure on the Cameroonians. But that notwithstanding, I believe we have come back home. We need to strategize so that we can be able to beat them when they come back for the second leg. The match was very interesting. They all exhibited good skills and showed their talents, but Ghana came on top, except that we could not utilize our opportunities. But I believe they also worked very hard. You know, coming from the World Cup, they wanted to prove to us that they have gone to the World Cup, and so they wanted to show a certain level of class. But I believe they were also complacent. Looking at, when they were coming out of the tunnel, they were giving a standing ovation, unlike when the Ghanaians were coming out to warm up. And I believe that got into their head. But the Ghanaian girls were very purposeful, and they have also vowed that they are just going to kill the game off when the Cameroonians come to Ghana.
Well, the team has already qualified for the All-Africa Games and will leave tomorrow for the next game. They play Senegal before they do that return leg against Cameroon. Let's do some more. And we step out of Ghana to talk about what's happening right now in Cote d'Ivoire. And Michel Doucier has been appointed the new Cote d'Ivoire head coach. The former Guinea boss succeeds Hervé Renard at the helm of Africa's Chaps. Doucier has been handed a 2-year contract with an option to renew another 2 years, and will be based in Cote d'Ivoire.
And that'll be all for the bulletin. Before we do a quick run through our top stories, government has revised downwards economic growth targets for 2015 from 3.9% to 3.5% in the finance minister's presentation of the supplementary budget and review of the economic performance so far. Though the finance minister says there are signs policies to stabilize the economy are yielding results, the minority says it is early days yet. The Food and Drugs Authority has recalled yet another aphrodisiac as it continues a clampdown on some adulterated products on the market. It says could cause the death of patrons. The police administration is insisting its eviction notice to officers occupying Militia House in Tema is non-negotiable. And the former Ekiti State Governor has addressed the third Atta Mills lecture, urging intellectuals to come off the fence and engage more in the political space. That'll be all for the bulletin. My name is Rizwalai. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good evening.
This is Joy News Prime.